Hello, everybody. It is Friday, March 27th, 2020. This is Kops Office Hours. I am your moderator, facilitator, Justin Santa Barbara. I work at Google. A reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will shortly be put on the internet. Please therefore be mindful of our code of conduct, which boils down to please be a good person. Someone has already pasted a link to our agenda in the chat. Please feel free to add your name to the attendees list, as I am doing right now. And if you do have any items for the agenda, please add them at the appropriate place. We do have a fairly full agenda, so we probably should jump right into it. And then I think we'll be able to get through it. First up, so we'll just jump straight into it. So first up, Mike, talking about C groups and C group drivers.
Yeah. So we've been running into a number of issues lately. So I wanted to make this brief since there's a long list of things. But with OOM killing and the such, you know, when things go outside their memory and allocation and CPU usage, the discovery, as I dove in deeper, we seem to by default, and we don't really have an option right now for users to change this. We use systemd as PID1 on our, kube, our main AMIs and everything. And then Docker, when it comes up, and kubelet both use cgroup fs on top of systemd as the cgroup, manager, which seems to work most of the time. However, we've seen many cases when it can, the kubelet can get killed by mistake and some really weird issues. And by switching everything over to systemd only, it seems to make things a lot better. And I bring it up as well because kubeadm seems to have ran into the issue as well, and they, but now by default push everyone that direction. And I think Minikube. And so my main prompt was, we don't have a flag to enable this yet. I was going to add a flag to enable it, and then build on top of that to add a easy switch so the users don't all have to set it themselves. And then we can decide later if we want to change a default. Does anyone have any ideas around this or questions or thoughts? Or am I making this up and I'm wrong?
The big one I was just going to ask, which I think you've talked about, is like the extent to which this is a deviation from what upstream is doing. And it does sound like at least some of the people have done it upstream. So I think why don't you start by just opening an issue or opening a PR or an issue, which just makes the change, and links to the upstream issue, so we can just have a look, and then we can talk about how best to introduce it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to look at. We have a number of issues that have been open for about 3 years on this that I think, but they don't mention the cgroup fs systemd problem. But I think that's what it actually is referring to. We have a number of them that would fall into this bucket. So yeah, I'll try to group all of that together and open up a PR. But I just want to make sure no one was like, no, we have it separated because of this. I think it's just historical reasons. I think Docker originally only supported cgroup fs, and therefore we just never had it. So
that sounds right. And yeah, once we have a look at it, we can decide whether it's something that we just enable in Kubernetes 1.
Yeah,
18
exactly.
or 19. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks. That sounds great. That sounds like that would be great. All right. Next, Peter, talking about basic auth.
Yes. So in Kubernetes 1.19, they recently dropped support for basic auth, which caused a bunch of our E2E jobs to fail because we were adding a flag to Kube API server, which they removed. And so Hackman opened a PR to not set that flag anymore, which is good. But we also deal with kops creates basic auth secrets by default for clusters, and they get added to kubeconfig files, both in kops export kubeconfig, and I believe the master's kubeconfig files have them as well. So I think we need to figure out how to remove those and not create the basic auth secret altogether, but I'm not sure how we want to do that exactly.
that sounds great. I think everyone will be happy to see basic auth fully disabled in 119. That would be great. I think the challenge that we're likely to face is that if we're not using basic auth, we're probably using client certificate authentication, and that client certificate authentication doesn't work if you're behind a layer 7, essentially it doesn't work through Nginx, for example, is my understanding. Any layer 7 relay, I guess you'd call it, or something, a layer 7 proxy that is not just a layer 4 pass through. And we are not using that, as far as I know, in kops by default, so we should be okay. But I don't know if other people are putting things in front of it that they will then be unhappy people.
I don't think that's really a question. They removed it completely.
That's fair.
So the only question is, do we remove it in 119 completely, so no flag at all? Or if we add a flag and keep generating it in our kube CFG, because in the part where we generate secrets, at the moment there is no Kubernetes version exposed. So somehow we have to find a way to either remove it selectively, or, which is more complicated, or drop it completely in 119. My tests with 111 were that if we remove it completely, it still works. So
that's good. I do think somewhere we had a higher security option to not generate some of the basic auth secrets. I don't remember.
No, it's just for the flag, not to not generate it. I think it's generated by a hash from the SSH key or something. So it can be generated at any time. And it's something strange there.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like we definitely have to turn it off in 119 entirely. If we even if we still generate them and they're not going to work. Like if we can't figure out how to not generate them, it's not the end of the world. It's certainly not great. Like if it's just like there but not used. So we should try to do that, right? It sounds like the question is, should we get it into 118?
No, it meant if we just remove it and anyone that uses kops 119 will not get basic authentication even if they try to set up, let's say, Kubernetes 111.
Oh, yeah, see, I would really not, I think we should key off the Kubernetes version just so that we don't have people stuck on an older kops version because they want to use basic auth. The people that would want to use basic auth are the people that are using it through through an Nginx, through a layer 7 load balancer.
Okay, so either we find an easy way to remove it from kube CFG, or we leave it there and just don't use it.
Yeah, I'm reasonably sure we can figure out. I knock on wood, hope that we can figure out how to like turn it off. But yeah, it sounds like it's less obvious than I expect. Is there interest in having this also in 118, or should we just wait until 119?
There's no reason to have it in 118 unless they decide to backport.
I don't think they're going to backport because I think it would be that would be a very big breaking change. I think the reason might be for like more security and give people a heads up on what's coming. If we did it to 118, we could continue to have a feature flag or something. We could then you'd have some mechanism. I don't want to say feature flag, some mechanism to turn it on. Whereas in 119, anyone upgrades to 119, basic auth is off. Kubernetes 119 basic auth is off, and you have no choice. So we basically be giving people a fair warning with a fallback position, which is that they can turn it back on in 118, which we don't have that option in 119.
So we do have a disabled basic auth flag that we expose through the API server config, and that gets passed as the flag to API server. We could also extend that field to also conditionally create the secret if we want to do that. And that could be in kops 118.
And we could turn it on. We could turn off basic auth by default in 118, but continue to have the ability to turn it back on. How do people feel about that? Is anyone using Kube API server behind or in a way that they would require basic auth? They're relying on basic auth?
I probably am, but it's not a big deal for me to change it.
Okay. Okay. I mean, we should certainly turn it off in 119, Kubernetes 119 if we can. I guess we are undecided on the 118 backport. It feels like this came up very quickly. I'm sure it was posted somewhere that I just missed, but I'm very wary of a sudden upgrade without any fallback. So that's why I'm wondering whether we should put it in 118.
As we did not yet branch, it should be pretty easy to make it work in 118.
Right. Okay, should we keep going? Okay, next topic. Hackman, something I have no idea about the videos in the YouTube channel not being up to date.
Okay, someone asked. I mean, I pointed someone to some discussion we had in office hours, and he came back to me and said, "Hey, there's none."
It's not up to date. Thank you for poking me. I actually tried this morning, and it sounds like the process has changed. It may have changed for the better, and that there may be a more automated process, but something has changed. So I am trying to upload those videos, and they will get uploaded one way or another, but it might be a little bit longer way throughout the new process. Currently, there's some automated thing, and we might have fancy info titles and look spectacular, as will everyone else, all these sort of things. So we have much to look forward to on that front, but yes, I will also try to get our videos uploaded.
Thank you
For the reminder. Next topic is networking legacy / NFT for kops 117.
So I didn't have time to write today. I did digging. One of the thing to take into consideration is that NFT is slower than legacy. So at the moment, yes, it's newer, but yeah. Okay. The second thing is the auto detect in Kubernetes. It's an auto detect based on something else actually writing something before it. So otherwise it defaults to legacy, which is good in our case. But to make it actually default to legacy in general, we need to set up the alternatives ourselves. So IP tables alternatives. We don't do this. It was a proposal from Jesse Haka. And this seems to be the only way to convince Kubernetes to run in IP tables, NFT, or legacy reliably. I mean, otherwise, depending on what's the default in the OS, it will choose that thing, and that's it. Once something has written there, other components will write also, and once the CNI writes something, that's it. So I did some testing in there, and really the only way to do it is to do it in additional user data. Otherwise, Docker may start first, and if it starts first and adds rules to the IP tables table, then there is no reason to set up alternatives anymore. Do you agree that we should do this? Or, I mean, does anyone have anything against it, or something that I'm not seeing?
To clarify, we can put it in NodeUp, correct? You're saying like today, if we didn't put it in NodeUp, we have to use additional user data.
No, we cannot put it in NodeUp because the default kops.io images have Docker installed and start by default. So if Docker is already started before NodeUp,
On the second, on a reboot.
no, on the first boot.
Well, on the first boot, oh yes, you're right. Yeah.
So
we can turn it off by default. Yeah.
that's actually needed. I created an issue
Right.
there. But at the moment, it's not the case. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any bright ideas. I feel like there's a lot of things that we have to do here. Yes, feels like there's a bunch of things you have to do here. It sounds like, yes, your issue about turning off Docker auto start is absolutely right. Yeah, I guess it will hurt anyone that is using the image for other things, but hopefully there aren't too many people doing that, or that they can adapt. Is there a tracking issue for this body of work?
Not yet.
I think can I ask you, would you mind doing that? Because then we can.
Yeah, I will do it after the call.
And I know that a lot of the things that have been things that you've also mentioned previously, which is great. And so hopefully, like, a lot of it can just be like links to those other issues. Like, we need to do this.
In theory, there is an issue from Jesse. If you want, I can post it here in chat. If you search for Buster, you should find the issue.
Yeah, it was confusing because we weren't clear what was going to happen upstream, but it sounds like upstream has made their move and now it isn't a total fix, right? Or it's complicated.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you are able to open an issue, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Even, but this would be a tracking issue, right? This would be a, like, hopefully, like, collapse other issues into this and link out to other issues that are described, like the work that needs to be done, I hope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you also.
Next, Peter, talking about Terraform 0.12.
Yes, so COPS 118 added support for supporting 0.12, but using JSON via feature flag. And now I'm fairly close to done having the native HCL syntax support for 0.12 done. I just need to figure out how we want to be enabling it. I linked to a comment on the very long issue about whether we use a target or a feature flag. And I think which one we would do kind of depends on whether we would want to continue to support the old syntax indefinitely, or if we would want to eventually migrate to only support the new syntax. So I'm curious if anyone has thoughts on that. Or anything else I mentioned in that comment.
One way to think about this might be, It does feel to me that Terraform has successfully transitioned to 0.12. It doesn't feel like they're going back. I don't know whether any people that use Terraform out there are like resisting 0.12 or sort of and hoping that there is some alternate path, or whether effectively everyone is has made the move to 0.12. I know that a migration tool and things like that. So
yeah,
0.12 is lovely.
Yeah, we use it for other stuff as well. It has worked great for us. So I guess it really depends on, do we want to create a new target that will forever be used for this new syntax, or do we want to eventually migrate the existing Terraform target to be using this new syntax?
The fact that people aren't sticking to 0.11 would imply to me that we, in this particular case, would push me towards a feature flag that would actually activate the old configuration so that we can deprecate the old configuration entirely. That's my take on it. I don't know whether this is like an ongoing stream of these changes. I would hope not. Like, is this a one-off, or is this like we're gonna have the same conversation in 2 months about 0.13? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like this will be around for a while, but who knows? I put a vote on the comment, and there are more votes for the target rather than feature flag, although the way I worded it suggested a feature flag to enable 0.12, perhaps a feature flag to preserve the existing behavior would be treated differently, or essentially flipping the default of that feature flag.
Yeah, I think people just want, when you run Terraform, to just do 0.12 at the moment, or at least in 6 months when it will be on our release.
I would second that. We moved everything to 12. And I think personally, I'm not worried about 13. I don't know if they're slated to come out with that. Like, it took them, once they pre-announced 12, it took like a year for it to come out. Like, they said it would be out in a summer, and it was out like the following summer, basically. So I think we roll forwards, personally, would be my opinion.
Thumbs up on moving forward too. We've translated everything to 12, and it seems like they made the jump that they needed to make, and that's probably going to be the way we go for a while.
So if we're able to support both in the code, then this would all suggest a feature flag with a deprecation, that at some point this feature flag is going to go away. Normally our feature flags go the other way, but but yes, we should deprecate, and with the intent should be that 0.11 is removed from our code after a suitable time period.
So when I open this pull request, should the feature flag default to the new behavior or to the old behavior?
The passing target Terraform should default to 12, I believe.
Okay.
So in other words, it is a breaking change to target Terraform. So we can only do it on a new kops release. And it would be a headline like release note. And then I presume it's a breaking change, but yes, it would certainly be a big release note. And then the feature flag is an accommodation for people that are not yet ready to make the change.
And when that goes in, can we put a projected date to deprecate so that people know when they have to get out of there?
Sounds good. I'll open with 2 years, and John will talk me down to 2 releases, I presume.
Sounds great.
I think I don't know how bad it is to maintain both. I imagine that this is one which is more like 2 or 3 releases, whatever we feel comfortable with.
Yeah, it's maintaining both is not a big deal. This stuff doesn't change frequently. I do have to update the Go field tags of every Terraform struct, which is invasive and unfortunate, but that seemed to be the only way we could do it with their HCL library.
Okay. All right, well, I think that's a good outcome. Thank you for that work. It'll be great to get kops onto 0.12. We are about halfway through, so I think we're doing okay in terms of pacing. Shall we move on to Brandon? You had an issue around the collaborative resource filtering for instance types. I don't necessarily see you. Oh, there you are. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm on. Yep. Yeah, so I just wanted to get some preliminary thoughts on adding declarative resource filtering for instance types. With the kind of explosion of instance types that's available, there's like over 270 now on AWS. And it's kind of verbose to like configure mixed instance groups specifically. So what I wanted to propose was adding either vCPUs, memory filters, possibly more, and then using the new describe instance types API from AWS to kind of figure out the correct instance types to use. I think this would be useful for just like resilient autoscaling groups in general, but it's also imperative for spot instances so that if one capacity pool is interrupted, it'll be able to move on to a different spot capacity pool. So I just wanted to get some thoughts on if the CLI was the right place to add this, if it should be on instance group creation and cluster creation, or if it should just go on cluster creation, since it seems like all the arguments are only on cluster creation right now. Yeah, just want to get some thoughts on that and see if there's any red flags before proceeding with implementation.
To what extent would this be like evaluated once versus to what extent can we push this into the like mixed instance group autoscaling group that I see you've mentioned? Like, is there an underlying AWS representation we can reuse?
For the actual like end result, like the Terraform end result, or
yeah, I guess for like the expanded form. Like, so I mean, one way to do this is when you do kops create cluster, we evaluate your request against the described instance types at that particular moment in time, and we say you're a best match for an M3 medium, so you are M3 medium forever. The other way would be we push that down into an AWS autoscaling group that like is able to match, say today you're an M3 medium, and then in a year, whenever it is, when M7 mediums launch, you're a better match for an M7 medium, and so when we launch more instances, we'll like switch you to that because we're able to like keep your preferences. So I guess the question is it more the former or the latter?
Yeah, more the former, because it would be like with mixed instance groups, you can do multiple instance types, but again, that's at whatever instance types are available when you run the command. There's no way currently to add instance types as they're released as far as like control planes on autoscaling groups.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how useful it would be at just having on create cluster, because I mean we have to review our instance types every once in a while, and if the tool is not in a form we can really use after we've created the cluster.
Right. That's why I was leaning towards the create instance group, because that seems like something that you might actually want to be static. You wouldn't actually want to reevaluate instance types as they're released in case, there's some parameter you didn't think of that causes like detrimental performance costs to your application. But if it was on instance group create, you could, select 10 instance types that match your configuration, and then you'd have that static forever. But the problem with that is that there's currently no arguments on instance group for like node size or node count or anything.
Yeah, because we reevaluate existing instance groups. We change nodes. We have instance groups for different teams, and they reevaluate what they need.
We do that as well.
Is this something which we could, if we persisted the intent, your preferences, I think you used memory and vCPU as your filtering criteria. if we persisted that and then also persisted the lock, like, you know, I'm sort of like imagining like the, whatever language you want to use that has a version specifier and a lock file. Like you sort of keep the version specifier on, or your instance type specifiers, and then you have a lock and it will tell you an update is available. Do you want to do that? Is that useful, or is it the case that the describe instance types is actually much more, the matching to instance types is much more complicated than Semver semantics, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be useful. I don't know what others' thoughts are, if it would be useful. Just because I don't see it like changing, so I think versioning kind of does make sense for the instance type selection, and then locking it down to that version, just so that you don't have dynamic weird changes. Like others are saying on like qualifying instance types and stuff, you've got to reevaluate every once in a while anyways. So maybe just like rerun it, get the new recommendations. Whether that belongs in the kops CLI or not, or if that belongs in an external tool that just can give you recommendations, I'm not sure on the fit there.
Yeah, well, we have GitOps tooling on top of kops, so CLI wouldn't be relevant for us, but others may be.
Same here as well.
A command, if you wanted to prototype this, as it were, a toolbox command, toolboxes are sort of playground.
Right.
And you could certainly build a toolbox command to recommend instance types or something like that. And that would be a great way to discover to what extent this is useful, and like, to what extent do I have to specify a super long string that is basically like the equivalent of specifying the, like, all this anyway. Because I mean, like, I know that, like, I was imagining, I'm going to specify this, but I'm also going to specify the architecture, right? Because otherwise I'll get an ARM chip that just like drops in there, and we don't support ARM yet. Yeah, certainly. So, but if you wanted to do this as a toolbox command, I think that would be a wonderful way to discover what the semantics should be.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a good next step. We can reevaluate after that comes out.
That'd be a great contribution. Thank you.
I really like this idea, by the way. So I think this is a really good direction to head to in the toolbox command. We would totally use that, because I don't really care what the specifics of my instances are. It's really about memory and CPU. So if there was just a command, I could just say every once in a while run this, and then we also have tooling around kops, but we could then check that in, and then, you know, now we have our new static version. So I think this is a great first pass, great idea. Thanks for the potential contribution.
Thanks.
All right, that sounds great. Next, John, talk about 8722, add replace before version field for the channel.
Yes, so we want to take privileges away from core DNS, and to do that, we have to change the service in a way that kops apply, or kubectl apply makes a hash of. So this is a proposal to have a field in the channel which says, if you're upgrading from versions before this, do a kubectl replace instead of a kubectl apply. So I think it's okay. I don't want to LGTM it because it's from a coworker. So I just want to get a sense of whether that's proceeding or not.
I like this proposal. I know there's also some other, there's another one where you can annotate a particular object with semantics. This is sort of a proposal that I think is happening elsewhere in like the apply logic. So like that's sort of the other way that people are thinking about this. So you would essentially annotate the new service with a, I don't want to say apply method replace, but you know, like something like that. And then it would know it, whatever the it was that was applying this would know not to apply, but in fact to replace. And I don't know whether sorry.
Well, it depends on what the previous version is. Because if we're replacing things before this change, but if we're replacing things after this, you still want apply logic.
And in that sense, replace before version is better because it avoids the unnecessary replace. It's currently at the whole package level, right? So I can't half replace, half apply.
Yep.
I will I will write down this one on my list, and what I will try to do is I will try to find the status of the alternate proposal, I guess the annotation type proposal, and then let's look at that on the issue or on the PR and discuss. I think this is a good proposal. I think it might put more burden on us than we want. Like it's going to be a little hard to get right. I guess maybe not, because replace before would always be the same as the current version. Is that right?
Yeah, you would put it at the version that was, you'd put the version of the breaking change.
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay, yes. So we would carry it over when we made, so when we first introduced the breaking change, we would copy the version, but then when we made the next non-breaking change, we would carry the previous, Yeah. Does that mean that it's also sticky? Like we never get rid of it?
We could get rid of it when we get rid of the previous version.
Yes.
Or get rid of upgrades from. So you probably always keep it.
That is a good one. I'm hoping that I will find a fully baked discussion of this somewhere elsewhere that is like already thought through all these weird edge cases. So I will try to hunt that down. Is that a good course of action?
Okay.
Yes. And then John, we have the next three actually, or next four. You are proposing to deprecate Kubernetes 110.
Yes, in 119. So it's because when we talk about the deprecation policy, we're talking about narrowing the range of proposed versions. So the question is, do we want to start narrowing it by 1 in 19, or do we want to wait until 20 before we start narrowing?
As cute as it would be to start narrowing at 20, I feel like we should start narrowing. I don't know how other people feel.
I'm with John. Let's start narrowing them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guy, how are you feeling about? You look like you're a less happy guy.
No, I'm for it.
Okay, good.
anything to force us into upgrading faster.
Okay. Yes, I think that makes sense. Great. And
okay. So going on the next one, we deferred the decision on what to do with Canal and the VX1 flannel backend for 2 weeks. There has been no movement on the Canal or flannel side.
To follow that up. Can I have another 2 weeks? I have had a busy 2 weeks.
Okay. Sure. Just would like to get 117 out.
Oh yeah, because this
and I want to get this in 117.
Yeah. All right. I'll do that immediately after this meeting. That is a priority.
And the last 2 items I have are things I thought we decided to go ahead on the last open office hours, and nothing's happened with them. So
this is just my being busy.
Give a nag. So
do we need to block 117 for this? I mean, could we not put a release note in and say there's a known issue with flannel and I think there's 2 of them, right? It's anybody that's using XVLAN, but anybody who's using XVLAN, yeah, there's a known issue with 1.17 and recommend not upgrading. And if for people who want to upgrade who aren't using XVLAN, they could go ahead.
I suspect there will be a number of people who don't read that release note.
Yeah.
Or put I'd also support just putting a flag on it or something, and instead of just removing it, because I feel like this is going to get fixed and then we're going to put it back in, right? Like there is some work going on it. If you follow through on if you follow down some of the tickets, there are people looking at it. It may be going slower than I'd like for certain, but
well, if there's a fix, we're going to have to do a rev to pull in the fix. We take off the block at the same time as we take the fix.
I do think that a block is less dramatic than pulling the plug entirely. Right? We could
Well,
say
it is a block for 117 and higher,
okay.
so you can do it with 116. You know, it checks on what your Kubernetes version is.
Okay, that is reasonable. All right, let me chase that one and then let's reach a decision on that. How about that?
Okay.
And then I think the next two on yours, I as I recall, yes, we just have to LGTM it or approve it or whatever it is, right?
Yep. Okay.
So to confirm for
Go.
everyone,
Yeah. Go on to the next person.
Well, I was gonna say we're just to confirm we are going to
Yeah.
we're gonna like stop using newer Kubernetes versions in our tests. Sorry, everywhere, which does have implications for our tests, but we are working around this with a flag, I believe, or an MVAR.
Yeah, there's a test and for a PR, which.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we're going to remove the V1 Alpha 1 API in 118.
Yes.
Yes. So we will have the V1 Alpha 2 API, but if you are using V1 Alpha 1, which I sure hope no one is, then you will find out the hard way. Okay. Yeah, sorry about not, I'm adjusting to the new normal here. Eric, are you here?
Yep. Hi.
Hey.
Yeah.
CD manager.
Yeah. So basically, I work with Ole Marcus, and he has asked me to bring this up. That's pretty much why I'm here, and I just wanted to kind of see how this goes. I've only first seen this pull request a couple of days ago. I haven't really looked at it too much, but seems fairly straightforward. So I guess maybe somebody else has some opinions or has looked at it. I think he wanted to just sort of, I don't know, nudge people about it.
And to be clear, this is to use a second instance of etcd, or a third instance, technically, a separated instance of etcd to support Cilium. And is this is an option, right? This is not required, so people can still run Cilium with the API server backed approach.
Yeah, you can run the API server backed, but if you decide to use an etc, then it uses etcd manager and runs it on your master as a third thing.
That feels reasonable to me. We've said in the past we don't want to expose the primary etcds for sort of security reasons. I'm not entirely clear why someone would want to run this. I'm guessing it's multi-cluster use cases. Is that right?
In the 1.6-ish Ciliums, the TRD only does not scale beyond 50 nodes. So you need the etcd to help propagate things more efficiently. It looks like in Cilium 1.7 or 1.8, they're going to make performance improvements to where they're even considering supporting a backing etcd. But you know, in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. Are we going to introduce something just to deprecate it? And over what, I mean, that's okay, but like over what time period are we talking about, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I don't know.
The PR, looking at the PR, it seems pretty reasonable. Like the bulk of the changes are in our test output. So that seems like it is not an incredibly difficult one to carry. And I think maybe the multi-cluster one is the one that tips us over the edge. As I understand it, if you want to do multi-cluster services, multi-cluster something, you have to use etcd with like there's some sort of etcd as the backing store. Is anyone?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, the only thing is we might have to rip it out later.
And I presume no one would object to that if there was no reason to keep it in. This seems acceptable to me. Does anyone sort of object to this, I guess? Okay. Okay, yes. Also because it's, yeah, if we're gonna lose Canal, we wanna make sure we have Cilium happy. All right. We have one last item on the agenda, which is sort of time permitting item from Peter, which is about how to update the kits dependencies. I could always make a video or something of that, or put a doc up about that. I propose we go through the release plan first. But first, before we do, are there any other agenda items? Okay. So it looks like, thank you to whoever copied this. It looks like we have a, looks like this is a copy from last week, and it looks like I have not created the Buster AMIs. I will, again, try to do that. I think this is now the 3rd week running. The shame is real, I apologize. So we have 1.18.0 alpha, another 1.18.0 alpha if anything comes up, in terms of like if there's a significant reason to do that. I think once we merge V1 alpha, once we merge the removal of V1 alpha 1, that would be a significant reason to do so. So why don't we change this from a, if anything, to a merge V1 alpha 1 removal and then do the next alpha. So we can expect, so we can expect the next V1, the next 1.18.0 alpha shortly. If there are other things you would like to get in there, then let's do that quickly.
The other question is, do we want to branch 118 so we can get the 119?
I think we probably should, especially because 119 sounds like it will have some bigger changes. So, and also create release 118 branch, close enough, 118 branch.
I added some instructions in the development docs about stuff that needs to happen when we create a new release branch. So if you could either follow those or post in Slack or something when it is created so that we can do that.
Is that in docs development?
Yeah, I'll pull it up and add a.
Okay.
Does the move to Buster AMIs imply deprecating stretch?
Yeah, it should, because I believe, well, I don't actually, end of life stretch isn't imminent as far as I understand.
It's
but
2 years out.
Yes, so I don't think we would formally deprecate it yet. We've had it, in the past we've done is we had an overlap period where we produce images for both. So I think we would stick with that for a release or two, and then we would probably deprecate stretch. But
I think it would mean Jesse going bye-bye.
Yeah, Jesse is pretty elderly at this point.
I don't think we're cutting Jesse ones. We've already removed, we're not building Jesse images anymore. If you want to do Jesse, you have to get it from upstream.
We're using a hardened stretch image, and they have not yet supported Buster after 2.5 years. So we'll pester them to do that, but we're not prepared to move to Buster promptly.
Cool. I don't think it's, so 2 things. I don't think it's, we will run a period of parallel releases. This is like the introduction of Buster, where we expect early adopters to try it out, and then we will deprecate it based on the idea that Buster is good enough. And then once we deprecate it, we expect people to switch to it or start switching to it in greater numbers. And so I don't want to do that until we feel like it's a sensible choice. And I'm sure it's a sensible choice, but we don't have data on that yet.
Gotcha, thanks.
By the way, can I ask somehow related question? Would it be an option to start having an Ubuntu image in the near future or make it the default? The reason I'm asking is that Buster is here to stay for another 2 years with already a pretty old kernel. The only distro with long-term support that will have a newer kernel would be Ubuntu 20.04, which will be released next month. That would be kind of a requirement for newer features in network plugins like BPF and things like that.
That is a good idea. In the past, in the past, the non-LTSs of Ubuntu have proved problematic in terms of their longevity. Like they don't last for as long as a Kubernetes release, which is just, that was really awkward. And then the other problem in the past with the Ubuntu LTSs was that the timing was sort of off in terms of what made the LTSs. However, yeah, 2004, which is next month, should be better in terms of timing and in terms of longer support. So it's certainly something we can look at. I am working on a better way to create the images that are derived from Buster. And I think it will be easily tweakable to produce images from Ubuntu as well. So I actually think we could have both. I don't want to sort of expand the support surface too much. So we should probably try to figure out which one it is that we recommend. I wouldn't want to recommend both, but I don't know how other people feel about recommending one or the other. We don't necessarily have to decide this yet. We can certainly produce more images in the same way that we are going to produce Buster and Stretch. It's not a big deal. It won't be a big deal to throw another one in the pot, but we should, I guess, be mindful of giving a clear recommendation that is a good recommendation.
Yeah, plus that our images are basically the default image plus some packages installed. So not really sure if it's worth creating a bunch of images besides the default one.
That's fair as well, that we could just, like, it might just be the standard images. You mean the standard Ubuntu image? I mean, yeah.
I don't know, maybe we still want the default image, but I think it's a bit misleading. People are from time to time asking, what optimizations do you have in the image? And there are none. So it would be maybe easier to just point to the official ones.
There are a few. I think one of the good things is that they are fewer, and like Kubernetes and Docker sort of succeeded. And so it was definitely, there were a lot more a couple of years ago in terms of syscuttles, in terms of kernel flags. And now there are, as you say, not many at all.
Should we just maybe document out what's different in our images versus the base in a doc page? So if anybody wants to build others, they can. I mean,
that's a great idea. Yeah, we should do that. And I think that's something we can do, I think, as part of the image builder project when we go to, like, I'll try to be clearer and more intentional about it when I actually produce this Docker image. Sorry, Buster image.
Okay.
And we have a list of a couple of blockers for 117. I think the big one is the 8614, the Canal VXLAN one. The others, and I think the IP tables is also challenging. I think the other two are less problematic in terms of, they're just like more details.
Regarding my last agenda item, the 117 branch is still using 116 Kubernetes dependencies. I don't know if we want to consider that a blocker now that we're not on the KK dependency.
It's probably less important. I can't remember if we released the beta of 117 or not. Did we? We did, didn't we? Anyone? I'll write down update versions, question mark. Update Kubernetes versions. It will be much more, should be much more straightforward than it has been in the past.
Yeah, my main question for the agenda item was about all the replace directives in the go.mod file and whether we still need those now that all of Kubernetes is using Go modules and the Semver tags and all that.
Yes, so this is a good one for the last minute, which is I will describe the challenge, which is the tags. When you use a tag, it is currently replaced by the SHA. So that's why we have the longer SHA versions are the ones which are actually used, and then underneath we have the commented out versions which are in human readable form. And if you want to use if you want to update the replace directives, you effectively delete the SHA versions, uncomment the human versions, change to the correct tags, copy it, comment out the block for the next person to come along. Then you run your first go command, and it will change your beautiful tags into the long SHA form. And so that's why we do that. It might be, as you say, that as Kubernetes Go mods plumb through, and that the correct interdependencies are actually more available in the projects, that we don't need to do this. It might be the case in 118. I don't think it's going to be the case in 117. I think there's at root, there's an odd behavior, which is that a replace in a dependency is not carried through, is how I remember it. But yeah, anyway, that's why there is this weird double form and the commented form, and it's not too bad. It's quite maybe a screenshot will be the best way to do it. Maybe I'll make a little video to show this, because it is surprising and not terribly difficult not terribly easy to describe.
I'll let you open that PR.
Okay. It's gonna be our first PR with the video of it being made. I won't record audio during that, the making of that PR. All right, we are at time. I don't know if there are any other items, whether we are generally happy with the release plan. Content with the release plan, I should say. Well, in that case, I wish everyone a very happy Friday, and we will see everyone in 2 weeks. Oh, unless it's a holiday. Yeah, we'll see everyone in 2 weeks. I don't think it's a holiday.
Thanks all.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks.